Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. My name is Leon Jones, and I got a good one for you if you are into identity politics or if you are into race. And the information comes out of the state, California, the liberal state of California, where Governor Newsom signed into law Amber Alerts for missing Black children and Black women up to 25 years old. Now, here's what I'm going to say about that. And of course, there's one out there, I believe the Silver Alert for seniors. Now, let's use a little bit of common sense because I know it's an election year coming up, number one. And what the Democrats of California are trying to do, they're trying to get elected. Of course, they have a fiasco going on with the passing of Dianne Feinstein, who was the longtime Democratic senator of California, and I believe ex-Dodger first baseman Steve Garvey, he's running for that seat. Now, when it comes to these Amber Alerts, if an Amber Alert goes off, I don't care what race the person is, it's going to come across my phone and I'm going to be alerted that an Amber Alert for missing child, something has happened to that child. Now, let's talk about this. You put in an Amber Alert for missing Black men, Black children and women from 12 to 25. Notice what they said. They said from 12 to 25. Now, I got this information from National Review. Let me share my screen just to give you some information. All right, from nationalreview.com, California introduces Ebony Alerts for missing Black women and children. Now, again, you got to be very, very specific because a number of people, they don't read the full print. They read what they want to read. Now, California's new Ebony Alert law creates a notification like an Amber Alert to recognize missing Black women and children ages 12 to 25. Now, let me stop there. Missing children from the ages of, I'm going to say you're a child up to 17. Now, from 18 to 25, you're a woman. Okay. What about children who are younger than 12? What about Black women who are older than 25? You see, does this make sense here? It really doesn't make sense. Now, again, be that we are going into an election year, the Democratic Party is trying to set up their base because, for the most part, the Democrats' base is Black women. And of course, Black men to follow. But to me, this doesn't make sense because you have a number of crimes that don't get solved in some of these urban areas. I know in Chicago, and I'm just going to repeat this, I don't like to give these kinds of numerical types of issues out there when I don't have the full data, but I will say this common sense wise, in a number of urban areas, a lot of these Black on Black crimes don't get solved. So should there be an Amber Alert out for that? Or missing Black child? What about Black boys? Yeah, what about black boys? Don't some of them go missing as well? Now, I'm talking about under the age of 12, black girls. See, this whole issue with identity politics from Gavin Newsom, does he have white guilt? I don't know. But when it comes to a lot of these individuals or politicians, they just don't make sense. Their mind is corroded. We already have enough issues going on anyway with races. Yes, it's gotten better, but you have a number of individuals who want racism to continue as a crutch for reelection. Let me continue. Governor Gavin Newsom signed Senate Bill 673 into law this week, which allows law enforcement to issue an Ebony Alert and the Department of the California Highway Patrol to update electronic highway signs. Media platforms like radio and television are encouraged, but not required to participate in Ebony Alerts. Now, I'm just going to poke holes in this argument. So, you have an alert out there, but radio and television aren't required to participate. But you want to have an Ebony Alert on all of the message boards. Well, an Ebony Alert sounds to me more like they want to separate the races. Now, of course, I'm going to say this, when there is a Caucasian girl missing, there are more people that are going to look into her disappearance than if there were an African American missing. That is true. Now, I'm saying this about California because there are going to be other states that are going to follow. Washington State, Oregon might follow. You may have Illinois, Maryland, New Jersey, New York. Pennsylvania, it's a maybe. Virginia, it's a maybe. All the blue states. But the question is this for the Democrats to get their base out to vote for the next election? Is this going to go on a ballot for any local elections in California? I don't know. But you have to ask those questions. Why do we need an Ebony Alert? I remember in the past that some African American congressional members were complaining that hurricanes weren't named after Black people. That is ridiculous. That is childish. And, when your leadership creates an atmosphere that is childish, it comes down to the regular folks. And a number of regular folks today have a childish mindset. Now, to me, you have a lot of these white politicians who really don't care about Black people, but they act as if they care about Black people. And African Americans, you got to understand, the Democrats don't care about you. I know the Republicans don't care about you, but the Democrats act as if they're your friends. Individuals are not your friends. They just brainwash you. And you believe the hype and you fall over them. That's the problem. Use your individual mind. And when I talk about plantation thinking, a lot of you are like sheep, the African American community. One goes into the slaughterhouse, another one follows. But if you find out when the first one goes in a slaughterhouse, why they didn't come out, and if you're the second person in line, a light bulb should come on. But no, I believe that this bill is going to create some type of emotional reaction, because I know a lot of African Americans are very emotional, particularly in the urban areas. Now, again, I know all Black people aren't going to go for this nonsense either. But you have to look at where this is going. Are they going to have one for Hispanics? Are they going to have one for Indians? I mean, is Gavin Newsom trying to create some segregation? I mean, if you go into the city of Chicago, it's already segregated. If you go in the city of Baltimore, it's segregated. New York, they have a lot of segregated areas where only individuals of like nationalities and culture basically surround each other. They do business with each other. It's natural because you understand each other. Now, good thing all the other states haven't jumped on board with this. I think this is silly, and I hope states like mine don't even put, which they won't, because I live in a red state of Indiana. They're not going to put this on any type of ballot. But California, you amaze me. You amaze me. I believe they should cut California up in about maybe two or three different states. I mean, I feel bad for the people in California who are basically thinking red because you have San Francisco, Sacramento, you have Los Angeles. Because of those large cities, you never get any representation. Now, if I were you all in California, conservative leaning, I would question your governor. Because whether you like it or not, you got a lot of people who voted for this governor. He was recalled. Well, with a recall vote. But he wasn't ousted. Now, maybe he will be vying for re-election, maybe not. But in the end, right now, they're looking to put a Democratic senator in Dianne Feinstein's seat. Well, the governor can appoint a Democratic senator or a senator that resigns or passes away. However, eventually that seat is going to be up for election time in 2024, I believe. But let's continue. Today, California is taking bold and needed action to locate missing Black children and Black women in California. I want to thank the governor for signing the Ebony Alert into law, said Democrat Senator Stephen Bradford, who authored the bill. Our Black children and young women are disproportionately represented on a list of missing persons. This is heartbreaking and painful for so many families and a public crisis for the entire state. The Ebony Alert can change this. Now, according to the bill, the Ebony Alerts are designed to issue and coordinate alerts with respect to Black youth, including young women and girls. Now, again, let me stop there. So you have to read what it's actually saying. Now, this is the article. Now it says Black youth. Now, earlier in this article, they talked about just Black girls and Black children. Now it says Black youth. So now are they including Black boys? See, this is where you have to ask the question, or somebody is double talking. Because again, aren't Black boys children? And also, when we say young women and girls, we're not even talking about young girls under the age of 11, because according to this article, it said girls 12 to 25. Well, I beg your pardon, I never promised you a rose garden, but you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old girls who go missing as well, regardless of race. So to me, you have to look at it this way. The gentleman who was a Democrat, he really didn't look into this bill. He just sent something up to get it signed. Or I can spin it this way, because I don't live in California, and thank goodness I don't live in that state. But this could be playing some identity politics just to get emotional reactions from Black people. Now, again, the Ebony Alerts are designed to issue and coordinate alerts with respect to Black youth, including young women and girls who are reported missing under explained or correction, that's unexplained or suspicious circumstances. Now, what's suspicious? What's unexplained? Well, we don't know. Now, common sense says some suspicion could be if a young girl was taken out by a husband, a boyfriend, a brother, and you know, somebody that's actually dealt with the individual or known the individual. That could be suspicious. But unexplained, that's something that has me on the ropes right now. Now, should say missing, but are they missing due to suspicious activity? One never knows. But one must understand. I will say this. Now, if the individual is developmentally disabled or impaired or abducted, guess what? You've been abducted, you're missing. But now, if you were disabled, that's not something that's unexplained. That's explained. The person is disabled or cognitively impaired. Now, again, with these Amber Alerts, there are strict criteria for a missing child to qualify for an Amber Alert message broadcast. If not met, the child is often labeled as a runaway. Black missing children are disproportionately classified as runaways in comparison to their white counterparts and do not receive the Amber Alert, which ultimately means the fewer resources are allotted to safe return for Black children. Now, the bill does state that the law will come into effect January 1st of 2024. Now, going back, Black children, and I do agree with that, but are they missing because they're abducted? Or if you want to talk about some suspicious activity, what about the crime where some of them are taken out and their remains might be found a year, 2 years later? That's something that should be looked at. But one of the reasons why I'm going to say this, and this is going to sting, a lot of your crimes in the African American community, they're not reported. Why? Because no one wants to tell. So you go in there and, yeah, hey, did you see so and so? Oh, I don't know anybody. I didn't see anybody. That generally happens. That's why a number of crimes go unsolved in the urban areas. Because what happens if you rat on somebody? Well, you might be one of those victims. So basically, nobody wants to speak up in the African American community. And if you do, you might need some protective custody. But again, Black children are disproportionately classified as runaways in comparison to their counterparts. Now, of course, The bill will go into effect January 1st of 2024. Also, California is so wacky. They got one out for the seniors, the silver alert. They even have a blue alert out for a violent attack on law enforcement officers. Now, if somebody's a missing indigenous person, they got a feather alert. And again, they got silver alerts for a missing person who is elderly, developmentally, or cognitively impaired. Now I'm gonna say this. Now I'm gonna look at if I can go in and pull some of these comments up on this article here. I can pull some of these comments up. Let me just check it out here. And some of them say, well, how about scared cow alerts for missing Hindus, spaghetti alerts for missing Italian Americans, sauerkraut alerts for missing German Americans? See, there will be a lot of people that are going to comment. So we'll go back to full circle, separate but equal. And I'm looking at some of the comments here. They forgot to say that 99% of the time it's a black person abducting a black person. Well, regardless of who's doing it, well, white people abduct white people as well. I mean, that's a joke right there. That's BS. Oh, it doesn't get any more racist than that. Talk about a dog whistle, pump up the vote, just like I said, the vote. Gavin Newsom for president, because he could be running for president. So black women and children are a higher proportion. If that's really true, that's awful. But the fate of every missing woman and child under nefarious circumstances is worth the same effort to protect, no matter what race. That is a fact. Definitely racist. Just have an alert. Feather alert for indigenous person sounds obviously racist. And again, you got to look at what people are saying. Got to look people were saying. Clearly, there are more people in the California government with way too much time on their hands. That's true. Let's have yellow alerts for missing Asians. Well, I will say this. Not in California, but I believe there's a hate crime bill for Asians as well. There is. See, one thing about America that I am seeing, it's more or less everybody wants to be a victim. That's what's making this country weak. Now I know for African Americans, and I'm African American myself, Black people have done a lot for this country. In fact, the other minorities that have come over here, and even the feminist movement, has basically piggybacked off the civil rights movement. I mean, I understand that Black people have had problems getting loans, redlining, the Interstate Highway Act that basically used some of the urban areas for eminent domain to build the interstate. I-244 was one of the interstates that was built in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where Black Wall Street was. Yeah, I understand things have happened to African Americans. Now, one thing I am not going to do is use statistics. And let me tell you why I don't like using statistics. Because statistics can be skewed, and statistics, they give you a sample. They do not give you real numbers. In fact, a number of individuals, I hear particularly in the Black sector, they love to use statistics to try to win an argument. You're not going to win an argument with statistics because statistics change daily. Now, let me tell you, there are different types of ways you can use statistics. But the main thing you need to understand about statistics is that statistics are as good as the accuracy you make the statistic. Let me give you an example. If I want to find something under the 95% confidence interval, what I have to do is go into the table under 95%, and there's a number 1.9, I think it's 1.95, and there are a couple of other digits. Well, you take that number and you multiply it by maybe the mean or the standard deviation, and you get a number. But do you know what that number means? A lot of people don't know what the numbers really mean. Just because the FBI gets statistics, they get samples, but do they build a graph of data? This is why I don't quote statistics. And this is the second part of this video. Many of you don't understand statistics. This is why I don't quote statistics. They change on a regular basis. You can use statistics to get error. You have to understand this when it comes to dealing with statistics. There's mean, which you get the sum of everything that you've taken, and then you get the average. That's your mean. Now, your standard deviation is where you take your each individual value, and you subtract it from your mean and you square it, and then you add the next individual value, subtract it from your mean, and you square it, and then it's divided by the amount of observations minus 1, all under the radical, which is known as the square root. Then you get your standard deviation. Now, if you want your variance, the variance is basically the standard deviation squared. But even though I've explained to you how to get the information, what does it really mean? How accurate are your statistics? How great is your sample? Many of us don't have a clue. And I would advise individuals get the right data for the right statistic. And just because you have statistics doesn't mean that those statistics are any good. Remember, data changes daily. I don't care if it's the CDC data. I don't care if it's the census, because sometimes individuals are getting information, they're delivering it, but the data is 5 and 10 years old. You need to have a history, a graph. You need to see trends. You need to understand probability, which uses what we call factorials. You need to understand, like, let me give you an example. What's the probability of somebody rolling a double 6? Probability is 1 in 36. Now, I quoted that. Now, how did I get that? Well, it's very easy. I squared the fraction 1/6 because you have 6 sides to 1 die. And then when you square 1, you get 1, and you square 6, you get 36. That's how that works. That's the probability. But too often, a number of individuals don't even know how to do statistics, yet they put statistics out there. I mean, I heard somebody out there talking about Black men. How many good Black men are they? And they expected the person to give them an actual number. Well, you can't give them a number because that's all subjective. And statistics can be subjective. Depends on how you spin them. But just because somebody gives you something based off of a statistic, you gotta check that statistic. Because every statistic is not correct. Now, what you can do is if you have a little bit of common sense, you can utilize that statistic to what's going on in the real world. See, to me, true education is not necessarily regurgitating something that a professor says. It's also looking at the situation for yourself. And then you go back and say, okay, this is what I saw, professor. I saw this. See, a lot of people don't do that. You know, I work as a construction inspector. I make sure I check everything. And I question what looks suspicious to me. But a lot of what we put out there is all subjective because many of us are biased. Statistics can be biased. Polls can be biased. But the bottom line is, if you don't understand the statistic, don't put it out there. If you don't understand what variance is or mean, if you don't understand how to do standard deviation or how to get 1.9599, that's the 95% confidence interval. You don't understand what a histogram is, don't put it out there. You look foolish. See, I know how to do these statistics, but I also know that you get a small sample to represent a whole. That's not accurate. And again, when it comes to statistics, also depends on how many sig figs you have. And when I mean sig figs, I mean significant figures. Now, the smaller your significant figures are, the better your accuracy is. If I have a significant figure that's a 0.01, that's pretty accurate. But if I have a 0.0001, that's even better. You always want to have more zeros in front of that first significant digit for good accuracy. Now, if you have a 1.000, that is not accurate at all. That's what you have to understand about statistics. But to wrap this all up, I believe that Gavin Newsom has put out a goofy bill for the state of California. Now, I know there are going to be other states that are blue states that are probably going to follow California. And I went to school in one of those blue states, state of New Jersey. Went to school in Pennsylvania. Now, I'm not saying that everybody on the left is goofy and everybody on the right is goofy. But you have too many people who are supposed to be leaders in power that are putting up bills that don't make any sense. This is why we who are the so-called peons need to understand how the world works. Many of us don't. We accept things. You know how the world works, it's much easier for you to navigate through it. But many of us live in deception. We live in the lies. If a lie is put out as the truth and then reported to the media as the truth and regurgitate the so-called truth that was a lie from the mainstream media or professor, that's propaganda. So what I'm asking you all to do is use a little bit more common sense and not your feelings. Understand how the real world works, and your life will be much better. When you live in a lie, you end up being delusional, and some of you are stuck in what we call arrested development. In other words, you're an adult that has a childlike mindset. And a number of adults here in the United States do have a childlike mindset. So in the end, use common sense. Why? Because that's the best experience in life. And don't utilize anything that's anecdotal. There's too many people use anecdotal arguments. Like, I know a friend who did this. Well, just because you know a friend who did this, you could be lying. Bottom line is understand the data when it's put before you. And if it's suspicious, question it. Why? Because that data could be faulty data. Again, remember with statistics, they can be skewed. You're not always going to win an argument with statistics. A statistic only represents a small sample of a large either population or a large sample that might be used for a laboratory experiment. But in the end, if you want to deal with facts, utilize common sense and critical thinking. Because facts and critical thinking always outweigh emotion. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, just comment, share, and subscribe. And if you are looking for some STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, check out my other channel, the QCIS channel. On that channel, I'll give you a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. And if you cannot find the 411 Talk Zone radio show or the QCIS channel on YouTube, you can check both of those channels out on my Twitter page. For the QCIS channel, I'll take it one step further because it is an educational channel. Find me on my LinkedIn page. In fact, I'm going to be doing more with the QCIS channel. And if you want to see more how to do statistics, I got an error propagation problem that I'm going to be explaining on my channel in the next few days. But you got to check that channel out. And in the end, be blessed for what you got. Be blessed for what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Just know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And if it doesn't apply, let it fly. If the shoe fits, wear it. If you don't like the shoe, change it. And also, I apologize for some of the small errors that I made in speaking. Try to slow it down next time. But in the end, just take this content, review it. You can agree, you can disagree, that's okay. But I just want to say thank you for listening to this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. I want you all to have a wonderful and gracious evening. God bless you. I'm out.